Ladies and gentlemen, Binnall of America!
And now, ladies and gentlemen, your host, Tim Binnall.
No commercials, no subscriptions, no network, no rules, and at the end of the day, my friends, no comparison. Welcome back to another edition of BOA The Revival. This is kind of like a Uber special edition of the program on all these different levels. First of all, tonight, it's the night before Halloween when you're hearing this, so it's a Halloween spooktacular to begin with. Second, for the people listening on the podcast, you can see the show. We're putting the video up of the show for the first time ever. So hopefully I don't make like an ass of myself with people watching. They're like, what has Binnall doing? While Monique is talking, I'm looking at notes. I'm doing things. I'm trying to pay attention to Monique. I'm not used to being on TV or whatever. So bear with me, you assholes. And this is we revived Binnall of America. As many know, the show started way back in 2005. We ran for a very, very long time. Then I retired down in New Orleans, big time party, came back, did a few shows here and there, revived the program last week in October. So it's like the 1 year anniversary of BOA Revival. So that's all. We got all this going on, and we've got a spectacular guest here tonight. I'm very excited about tonight's program. I've been looking forward to it since Monique said she'd do the program. So I'm very intimidated by Monique. She's like a star, folks. She's like a huge superstar. And I'm like, she's not going to come on Binnall of America. What are you, crazy? And Monique was like, hey, let's do it Monday night. So here we are. She is the drag queen paranormal investigator extraordinaire. She's been doing this for a few years now. Your name had crossed my path before you became a paranormal investigator, Monique. So I'm aware of your work as a drag performer. You're kind of like a New England legend. I'm going to just say it. You're kind of like a New England legend. And so when I remember seeing, I'm like, wait a minute, that's Monique Toosoon, the drag queen from New Hampshire. Now she's doing paranormal investigations. This is wild. This is so cool. And I've been following what you've been doing for the last few years, and I really love it. And I said, we've never done a Halloween show before, so let's do a spooktacular and get Monique Toosoon on the show. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm a huge fan.
Oh, thank you. I had no clue you were such a huge fan. With the whole New England legend thing, I've been hosting drag shows in New England for over 20 years. So that's definitely something that's been out there. But I've also been voted best local entertainer by the Nashua Telegraph. I won, I believe, 4 years and 3 of those consecutively. So I've kind of made a hostess name for myself up here.
Yes, they call you the hostess with the mostess, right?
Yeah. Now the ghostess with the mostess.
Exactly. So, well, we start out the show with the bio, the background. Who is Monique Toosoon? You kind of gave us a little bit of a little background there just now, but give us sort of how'd you get mixed up in all this? How'd you wind up here talking to me tonight?
So I started drag earlier, around 20 years old. 18 years old is when I did my first show, but I really started developing around 20 years old as a drag queen. And I started doing drag because of Elvira, honestly, and Pamela Anderson, Jenny McCarthy. Like, I loved all the Hollywood blondes and all like we probably call them like hoes now or whatever, but all the like beautiful women of the 90s, and kind of inspired me. Elvira was the first one, and I started doing drag shows, and I realized really soon that I had a talent for holding a microphone and trash talking in a whole audience, and that kind of became like my superpower. And COVID came, and of course COVID took away all my bars and clubs and performing. And so instead of doing shows during COVID, I decided, like, why not take something else I was doing? Because I've already been a paranormal investigator for a while. And I decided to cross the two worlds and just see what the hell would happen. And the first night I went out and drag ghost hunting was actually at the S.K. Pierce Mansion in Gardner, Mass. And in the master's room, we got an EVP that said he's a lady. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, immediately I was like, oh my God, they're reacting to the fact that I'm in drag and
Right.
wig, eyelash. So many weird things came out of the boxes and the equipment that night. And I kind of became immediately hooked on doing drag and ghost hunting. And it was thanks to COVID, honestly.
Well, that's why I'm such a huge fan, because it's such a unique combination, and I really have a world of respect for drag performers. It's so difficult how many different talents you have to have. You like the outfits, the makeup, and the persona, plus a whole bunch of other stuff, and navigating the world of that scene, because I'm really into different scenes. So I find that whole realm really fascinating, and then to bring that over to the paranormal is like, wow, this is really cool. So you were doing paranormal investigator and get investigations not in drag.
Yeah, just
Beforehand.
prior to COVID. Yeah, I'd probably done anywhere from like 20 to 30 different investigations. Some of the craziest places in the United States too. West Virginia State Pen, Sweet Springs. I mean, I've been all over the place. And then just COVID was like, you need to try doing this in drag. And I did. And I can't do it any other way now. Like it's insane what it does.
Yeah, that's what I'm interested in. Does it you mentioned in one of your bios, you say the spirits react to it. So it is like that, where you can kind of sense that you're drawing their attention, maybe?
Yeah, other mediums and investigators that bring me into places like I always tell them I call myself paranormal vodka because I'm going to spike the punch in the haunted house that night. Typically, the spirits respond a specific way to most groups, and like a lot of groups will get the same spirits or they'll get the same energy readings in there, the same kind of stories that other groups are getting. When I go in there, it's like it flipped upside down. They're completely fucking drunk off of me and they say weird stuff. They talk about my wigs. Sometimes they hit on me. We've gotten like dirty words. Like it's just so funny how the spirits react
So
to
weird.
a person in a costume. It's, and I'm sure they would react the same way to other people in costume as well. But I think the fact that they probably don't really understand what a drag queen is too. Some of these spirits are older and probably have no clue what the hell I'm doing.
Yeah, I could absolutely see that, where they'd be like, "What is going on?" Because one of the things I was thinking, and you have a very poignant video. We could talk about what you talk about in the video later, but there's a where you're getting into drag. I believe it is in Wilson Castle. And
Yes.
I was thinking this before I talked to you tonight. I was like, it would be interesting if she got into the drag, and like it almost, and like had sort of the recorders running and stuff, and just sort of like silo yourself off and see if it picks anything up, because I also feel like if while you're in the process, you would sort of enter into this zen state where like you're not even thinking about the possibility that there are ghosts around, and maybe that would have some kind of reaction from them where they're like, we're being completely ignored here, or what is, like they would have an interest in that transformation. I don't know if they ever tried that, but I wonder if that would be fruitful.
So at Wilson Castle, I used to get ready in Sarah Johnson's room, which is the room where that video is filmed. And every time I got ready in that room, I always felt something darting around behind me. And I related to one of the little boys in the castle, and he was probably just curious and is like, what is going on in my mom's room? And
Right.
but I have filmed myself getting ready before at multiple locations because I do like to see if anything is reacting to the fact that I am putting on makeup or boobs or anything. And I did it at Hinsdale as well. I filmed myself getting ready in there. I haven't actually gone through the footage of that, but I should see if there is something there.
Yeah, it would be interesting, and sort of just run like the EVP recorder just to see if it picks anything up during the process. Like because I imagine you really would, unless you're like kind of talking out loud, you wouldn't be saying anything. So it would be like when something would be picked up. You know what I mean? So
and it would be
yeah. I would give that a run. I'd like to see more of that, because I think that that would be interesting. So you say you have a kiss of sensitivity. Now, this is you believe that you have mediumistic powers essentially, or abilities, or I don't know what the proper term is.
Yeah, I prefer. Yeah, I can't say medium because I really don't even like to tell people about it when I go investigating, because sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm more of a small. I get things, I understand things, I can connect to other mediums in a way that we can read each other's minds in a sense. Like we pick up on the same energy and we can communicate back and forth with it. Spirits of children tend to flock to me too, which is something I never had before going in drag. But I think in drag they see like this motherly or clown or something, and they're just really flock to me. I get a lot of children when I'm in drag.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't. Yeah, I was kind of afraid to use the term clown, but it is sort of, yes, like a costumed makeup, sort of like an over the top persona that's in the mix of, like, if you're a good, like, let's say you were at Wilson Castle last weekend, I was there a couple of weeks ago. It's like, can you imagine how like bored those poor ghosts are at Wilson Castle? They're like, oh, here comes another group of people coming through trying to talk to us. And then you come rolling in and they're probably like, what the fuck? What? Wait a minute. What's going on here? Who is this person? I want to know more about, like, the ghosts are like coming around to you.
Yeah, I'm the world's most unique trigger object. Bring me anywhere and something weird is going to happen. And specifically at the castle, the owner, Denise Wilson, her grandfather, Colonel Wilson, is like this dirty old man spirit. And he like tends to grab like the female customers. They'll report like their butts are being grabbed and stuff like that. The first night I was there in drag, I got grabbed. And I was afraid to say something because I'm like, I don't want to tell Denise that her grandfather is, grabbing me, this drag queen at the castle. But I told her anyway because I had to. And she told me, she's like, he was kind of this dirty old man and would hit on anything at a party that had legs. He didn't have specifics. And, ever since that night, now I purposely try to get Colonel Wilson to come through and communicate. And he's communicated as far as telling me what color dresses to wear at the next event. Like, in front of guests, he'll do that. He lifted up the back of my dress at the castle one time during the tour. Not even during the investigation. I was just in the tour and the back of my dress went up just a little bit and it dropped. And I turned around and everybody in front of me was like, there's no one there.
Yeah.
And they all watched it happen. And it was just such a weird experience.
That's weird. How did he tell you what dress to wear? What color dress? To an EVP or something?
Yeah, through like Phasma Box, we were using like a radio or one of those things, and I would be like, "What color do you want me to wear next time?" And he had picked blue, and that event I wore a blue dress, and he responded the next one to wear a black dress, and I haven't asked him that in a minute, but he used to respond to that stuff for me.
That's wild. How often have you been to Wilson Castle?
I'm there about 3 to 5 times a year. I do 3 events a year there, and then I tend to go there privately a couple of times too. It's a place that I have a really deep connection with, and the owner, Denise, was one of the first people to ever give me an opportunity. And opportunities when you're a drag queen are far and few between. A lot of people still are afraid of this or don't want this at their location, and Denise was just one of the first people to say, I want you to do an event here, and that kind of kicked off a lot of my event career.
Yeah. Well, I was wondering that if you received much pushback from the ghost community or the locations where they're like, no, we don't want to do this.
Yeah, I find that a lot of people are really, really nice to my face, and then I hear a lot of stuff behind my back of what they're saying after they meet me, and people are very judgy. People don't want anything different taking over this paranormal world. I think there are just like 4,000 people fighting for 5 spots that they see. I'm not competing for anyone's spot. I don't want your spot. I'm completely different. I'm unique. I'm going to explode glitter all over the place regardless, but you don't want me here, I don't give a shit. I'm going to be here, and I'm going to do my thing, and I'm going to do it how I do it, and if you don't like that, then you don't need to work with me.
You're a welcome addition to the paranormal community. I'll say it right here and now, because we need more diverse voices and also new ideas. So to me, it's you're doing both of those things. I find it interesting. I went on your fan page to do research, and I couldn't help but sort of like appreciate the parallels between the drag world and the paranormal world. As I'm like scrolling through, almost just in sort of a businessy sense, the promotion, like you really couldn't tell the difference between a drag flyer on your fan page and a ghost hunt flyer, because they're both kind of like the same. I also like it. It's like pro wrestling. It's like there's a show coming to town and you want to get tickets, and here are the people that are going to be there. It's really a remarkable similarity between those two worlds.
Yeah, and I've been doing drag shows for 20 years, and I'm in charge of everything I do. I am an OCD person that has to be in charge and has to make sure everything goes according to plan. So doing drag shows was kind of like my practice for doing paranormal events. Like it made me better at being able to host them. Most locations I work with will go on and tell people that they should take inspiration from me on how to run the event from behind the scenes, because I show up organized. Everything is, professional, right down to every little detail. And that's something that I pride myself in, is making sure everything's like that. But the flyers all look the same because I make them all.
That makes sense. Yeah. But I just mean in general, like you kind of the same idea of like, here are the different personalities you can see at this event and get your tickets now kind of thing. It's really interesting that they're both these sort of events in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, they're very similar.
So Wilson Castle, how was the thing this past weekend? Did you get anything interesting?
Oh, wow. Yeah. So a very weird night at Wilson Castle. They always are different. I've never had an event that's not good. I've never had an event where nothing happens, which is, I'm very fortunate about. But this time I had Sam Baltrusis, and I had a medium called Heidi Kemper. And anytime we have Sam Baltrusis there, we always do a seance, which is his version of a seance. And during this seance, Sam Baltrusis alerted me to the fact that I probably have an attachment that I picked up in Iowa. I was in Iowa a couple of weeks ago. That's a whole nother story.
Jeez.
Yeah, and not a bad one. Just, someone that wants to tell a story and they want me to tell it. And I've got to figure out how to do that for them. But we had a seance, and then we always split my groups into smaller groups so that we don't destroy the investigation with too much noise. And so I led a team with Sam Baltrusis and Heidi Kemper and my friend Thomas Donahue and the Fetters, who are the Paraclauses. You see them, they dress up as Santa and Mrs. Claus and do really cool stuff. They led another group, and we did a lot of Phasma box that night. We did some tripwire. EMF candles were going crazy during our seance. We were getting a lot of like negative stuff that night. For some reason, it was a lot of elemental feeling energy, very strong, powerful, really trying to like scare us in a sense, but we knew what we were dealing with, so we weren't really getting afraid of it. But a weird investigation with the castle. Usually we connect with like Elliot, who is one of the kids from the original owners. Colonel Wilson's a big guy there. A lot of Denise's relatives come through there. But yeah. This is a weird one.
What do you mean elemental energy?
So this is the first time we've ever felt anything that strong there, but elemental is a different feeling altogether. And Sam and Heidi and me were all picking up on like a weird strength of something there, and it was not normal, and it almost felt like Conjuring House or Hinsdale. Like it was a very thick, heavy feeling, like you entered a bubble and you were kind of like trapped in this open-ended bubble of energy. And they were saying that it was an air elemental. I'm an air sign, so that may be why it was kind of playing with me a little bit that night. I'm not somebody that can see elemental energy. I don't know how to justify what it is without feeling it. But I've been in the presence of different kind of elemental energy.
Interesting. All right. I wouldn't even know what it, I don't even know if I would feel that. I don't even know, like, I guess it's just kind of the vibe.
It's stronger than a normal, like, spiritual energy or a ghost, or it feels a lot different. It feels like every hair on your body is sticking straight up. Sometimes there's odor involved too. Like we were getting a strong urine odor.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you smell fire. Like lots of weird things. Elemental energy is weird. Some people say that elemental energy can also come off as like a crossroads energy where it tries to get you to do things and sign kind of like a contract kind of deal. I've never come across any of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've been chased out of the woods of Hinsdale by something that we were thinking was elemental. Whatever it was huge, and we ran. I was running through the woods in full dragon platform shoes.
That was another question that I had for you tonight was, do you find, I guess the trade-off is that you get better results, right? But it's like, is it difficult to sort of maneuver around these locations in drag? I don't know what kind of footwear you have going on, but I imagine it's like, I've been in the Wilson house. I wouldn't want to be running around there in high heels.
I don't use high heels. So I tried to use high heels the first time I went, but they were afraid I would scratch the floors, to be honest, or I would fall.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I started getting platforms, which are probably like 6-inch platform shoes. So it's like walking on bricks essentially. And platforms are a lot more comfortable than heels. So they're a lot easier to walk around in, but I tend to stay in drag for like 6 to 7 hours of the event, and then I take it off.
Okay. Yeah, yes, I would assume. Yeah, because I saw pictures of you when you went to Wilson Castle and you weren't in drag at first. That's what gave me the idea, where it was like, oh, she should like do a thing where that's what came up. That's where that whole idea earlier came from. The picture on your Facebook page. Yeah, it's interesting. I was there 2 weeks ago. I had done 2 ghost hunts previously. And that was like 10 years ago. So I had the Paranormal 5 folks on. I don't know if you know these guys, but
I know the name, but I don't know if I know them personally.
Richie and Missy Latrobe. There you go. So I
Friends
still
with
have
them?
some spark of memory in my old age. So yeah. So and they were there with like other ghost groups. It was cool. I went and just was a complete observer, which is how I best operate in the world of paranormal. So I was just watching it, found it very interesting, and knowing that you were there this past weekend. So what is your technique? Because I was kind of watching these different groups, and they each kind of had their own little sort of like way of doing things. And so obviously I want to know what is your sort of, what's your shtick, if you will?
So my shtick is obviously the drag part of it, and
Yes.
that creates like the biggest trigger object you can imagine, because no spirits have seen a drag queen. I'm telling you right now, no locations I'm going to, a drag queen has been in before me. So it's the first time we're throwing this into the mix of that. But I'm also,
Awesome. I love this. Yes.
yeah, and I'm a massive equipment nerd. Like I love equipment, so I know everything about every single piece of equipment that I own. I probably own $20,000 worth of equipment at this
Oh my
point.
God.
Like a lot. I'm obsessed with equipment, so I love it, and I'm sensitive, so I like to confirm what you get from here with your equipment, and then you get like that final confirmation. But I love working with sensitives too. I think sensitives are so important to paranormal investigations, because with equipment alone, you're going to get voices, you're going to talk to things through radios, but sensitives are really good at confirming all those details too, and taking it to the next level too, and letting you know that there are things out there that aren't communicating with us through the equipment.
Yeah, it's like akin to like them seeing a UFO through a jet radar, and then someone on the ground also sees it in the sky. Then you get the
Yes.
2 points of observation. Yeah, $20,000.
Not
That's
cheap.
remarkable. How much equipment? Like, what do you have that is $20,000? Like, you just have
wow.
like a chest full of stuff.
I have got multiple chests full of things. But when you look at some of the equipment, some of it's like $600, $700, $800 a pop. Like an Ovulus alone is $700. But for my birthday a couple of years ago, I asked my husband for the most expensive piece of equipment I own. And there's a guy named George Brown, and he makes these things called it's jumping. Geoboxes.
Okay.
Or geoports. And they're essentially like very fancy bougie ghost radios that echo and take out the background noise so that you really hear clear answers coming through it.
Yeah.
And these radios cost $3,000. And
oh my God.
he can make them out of bags, or mine is actually a pink toaster. It's a 4-slice pink toaster. So when I bring that everywhere, people are like, "Oh my God, this is so cool!" But SLS cameras, we have those. Those are $700-800 a pop. Cameras just to record, the lights that go with them, like all the little things they just cost a lot of money. The dead bells, EMF candles, like every piece of equipment has a pretty high price on it. But usually they're worth it. There are some, obviously, that you buy and you're like, "What a piece of crap!" But
yeah. Wow. All right. And do you bring all this and deploy it all, or do you sort of like pick and choose? Like, all right, I'm going to Wilson Castle. I'm going to bring the strip lights and the the drone camera or whatever.
yeah, so it depends on the night. We usually have everything available because spirits are just like us. You might not want to play with this toy, but you'll play with that toy. So,
Yeah.
you always want to have options if something just isn't panning out for the night. Like this past weekend at the castle, 2 of my cameras didn't work and my tripwire didn't want to work. It was the only time I've ever had things go faulty at the castle, which really shows that maybe that elemental energy was messing with all my stuff. But other tools I haven't used were working great that night. Music boxes, which sometimes I have no luck with, were working great that night.
And what's the music box?
So a music box is motion sensitive, and if anything goes by the motion sensor, it's going to play music. I had a company called Vortex Ghost Gear. They made me 2 coffin-shaped boxes, and they actually have Elvira on them. They painted Elvira on both of them for me because I'm obsessed. Obviously, you can see behind me, everything's Elvira. my biggest inspiration for what I do and who I am.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. So I'm still kind of wrapping my mind around this $20,000 worth of equipment. I can see it though, because when I
And
was
it's not
on
a
the
lot.
one a couple weeks ago, the guy said that they had to spend a shitload of money on like some discontinued voice. Does it sound familiar? Discontinued voice recorder that like only recorded sounds when they happened. So it was like I don't know. They got a good
It's called the
EVP with it. So.
DR60. Yeah, it's a DR60. It's an old Panabox radio, I'm assuming what they're talking about. And if you can find one that's working, White Light Paranormal John Mallory makes these. I have a couple of his Panabox radios, and those sell for $800 a pop. But the one they're talking about is a DR60 recorder, and it's the old Panasonic recorder. And supposedly it's the best one for evidence. I don't even own one of those yet, because those anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 if you can find one working.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jeez. I'm surprised some enterprising ghost equipment producer hasn't figured out a way to reverse engineer that, but I guess I don't know, because they made it sound like it was like faulty, so they took it off the market. But like, you should be able to figure out how to do whatever it was that it does. But I don't know.
Well, somebody should tell Panasonic to get
No
their
shit.
butt back into the 80s and start making these fucking radios again, so we don't have to spend $6,000 a pop on them. Because you know what? If they started making those again exactly the same way, I bet you every investigator in this country would be buying one.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It sounded like the coolest, the best, they made it sound like it was the best thing you could use to record these ambient sounds. Because it doesn't, from what I understand, like it's not like when you listen to the EVP, it's just all this dead air. Like it cuts out all the dead air apparently. So I was pretty impressed with that.
There's a lot of cool recording equipment.
So what is you went to the Wildwood Sanitarium. I need glasses. I'm looking at my notes. Well, actually, no. Let me go back to a different place that I've been to also, so I have some point of reference. Trans-Allegheny in West Virginia. You've done an investigation there?
I have. Not in drag.
Okay, so what was that like in general, though?
So that was actually probably one of my quietest locations ever. And I don't know why. We just went on a night that nothing really was happening. The most we got that night was the lobotomy stuff. We were getting a lot of stuff in the lobotomy room, but it was really like we had gotten lobotomies. Like it was making us numb, and we were like having a hard time talking in there. There's a room in there. This has been a couple of years since I've been there, but there is a room in there where somebody murdered someone or hung them. And we had some weird energy in there, but all in all, the whole place was really quiet for us.
Interesting. Yeah. See, what I envy though, is you did like an overnight there or whatever, or like you didn't just go on a tour with people like on a Saturday afternoon. That's what
There was 5 or 6 of us that went there, and it was just us 6.
Yeah. Trans-Allegheny. Yeah. See,
that's what there.
Did you crash at Wilson Castle last weekend?
Oh, I sleep at the castle every time I'm there.
Where do you sleep? Because the thing I was doing there, like you have to sleep in tents outside. I'm like, fuck that. I already have a hotel room.
Oh God, no! I sleep on a cot, usually on the first floor. I like the dining room because that place stays dark even in the morning. I hate sleeping anywhere on the front facing part of the building because that's where the light comes in the morning. So I tend to stay on the other side. So either in the den or the dining room. But I have had nights there where I've forgotten my bed, and I've actually slept in the original beds with the original mattresses from the original owners in the 1890s.
Oh my God.
One night I slept in Sarah Johnson's room, which is the pink room with the curtain that opens and closes. And I don't know how I slept, but I slept like a baby that night in her bed.
But I wonder, I think the energy of this is kind of really like, this is like stone dorm room chat, but it's like, I think maybe the bed like has a spirit of its own. And it's like, look, no one's fucking slept in this. Like, you're a bed. You've been sitting in this room for decades. And it's like, I guess I'm just a shitty bed. No one wants to sleep in me. So like when you slept in the bed, it was like, finally I'm appreciated again.
That too. And I also the energy of the woman that in that room too. Sarah Johnson was the mom. She was the original owner of the castle. She had the castle built. It was her love, you know. It was something that she obviously didn't die there, but she goes back there and that's where she's haunting, you know. And I think that room was special to her. So sleeping in there, it was almost like a nurturing feeling too, like a motherly, like you're sleeping in your mom's room.
Yeah.
And
Now,
it was comfortable.
okay. Do you have after all this time, have you sort of like, do you have any theory on what these are? It seems like you were more of the opinion that, at least at the Wilson Castle, that they're more sentient spirits, let's say, instead of the, you know, the stone tape theory that you know you might apply to like Gettysburg or something.
Yeah, so there's the residual energy, obviously, and that's the energies that we can't talk to. Those are the energies that are on repeat mode in the afterlife. They're not intellectual. There's no communicating, but some people see it. I don't see residual energy normally. And then the person I wrote a book with, which we can talk about after, but I wrote a book with a guy who's a scientist, and he kind of explained energy to a group of people that I was with, and it kind of made a lot of light bulbs go off in the room. And he kind of explained that we have ghosts and we have spirits. Ghosts are the energies that are stuck here on Earth because they're either A, afraid to move on, or they do not have the energy to move on, or they don't even know that they've passed. Those are usually the energies that we're talking to. Spirits are energies that have crossed over but come back for visits, and you can call them back. Like, so when you go to a medium, typically you're calling on a spirit that has moved on, like from a family member, and they're coming back to talk. At the castle, they're a combination of both. We have some things that aren't moved on there, and then you have like Denise's relatives that have moved on, but they come back because it's a place that they loved. And that's kind of where I fall on that. I fall on that same spectrum of energy. I don't believe there's a negative place people go after they die. I don't believe in like the heavens or the hells, but I believe that people go somewhere where their energy is with their other energies of their families and their loved ones and whatnot. I believe in the reincarnation of us. I believe I've had quite a few past lives. I've had people tell me about some of them. But I don't believe that human and animal reincarnate in each other, just human on human. There's a lot of different, everyone believes something different. And, you know, who knows who's right, who's wrong? We'll never probably know in our lifetimes, you know?
Yeah, I hadn't really even given it much thought, like the reincarnation. Yeah, if you reincarnate into like an animal or not. No, I don't think, unless maybe you want to, you know, then maybe if they're like, look, I'd like to try to be a cat. Why not? It'd be fun, you know? But yeah, I don't think, I think also that I like to think, you know, don't we all, that like nothing's forced on you. So if you die, you get up there, then you have like an array of options where they're like, you know, would you like to have this life, that life, whatever, go and do it, you know?
Yeah, a lot of mediums. A lot of mediums call this our meat suit that we learn. We come here for school and we learn in our meat suits. And then we take all this stuff we learn and we bring it into our afterlife. And then we come back to learn more. Earth is school for us. And I know a lot of people who are like done with Earth at this point. They're like, don't bring me back here. I'm not reincarnating here on Earth. I'm staying in my energy form and never coming back. And I'm kind of on that page right now too. Earth is a hard place right now.
Yeah, no, man, it's at the risk of like getting too dark. Yeah, there's certainly times when I look around and I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of all set with this ride. This is this ride's going in a bad direction. Like, you know, meteor anytime you want to
seriously
hit us, it would be all right. So is there a place you haven't gone to that you'd like to go to? I mean,
my God,
because you have a very small circuit right now. I'm gonna be honest. I feel kind of excited. One of the reasons why I was really excited about talking to you is because I think people, but all America listeners, you've had this happen before. You've heard Monique Toosoon on here now. She's going to be an enormous fucking star in the paranormal, and you're gonna be like, I heard her on But All of America like a couple years. She's already a huge star, but I mean like supernova. Like we're gonna see a huge explosion. Because I've already seen you sort of grow and grow and grow already since you got started in all this.
Yeah, I'm definitely getting a lot of attention in the paranormal world, whether it's good or bad, it's definitely there. I have filmed TV shows. I've done 2 shows of Dark Echoes on Amazon Prime. The episode of where I'm running through the woods at Hinsdale being chased by an elemental, that was actually for the Ghost Finders. That's coming out either this month or in January. The book is coming soon. I wrote a book this year, which is kind of
Yes,
crazy, something I never thought would happen. I have been involved in a lot of Hollywood stuff too, but a lot of it has not panned out. There's still things going on though, any moment
I'm sure.
something huge could just happen. And I'm taking everything with pride right now. And every situation I get, I'm proud of and happy about.
Absolutely.
But my ideal location, that's what you were asking. I forgot what you were
Yes,
asking.
that was me. I went off on a ramble, and then it was like, as you were talking about that part, I'm like, oh, I never finished that first question. But
No, that's
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So ideal, so I have never done a prison in drag yet. Like I am dying to get into a prison, but my ideal ultimate number one is Alcatraz.
I was just there in early September.
Shut the fuck up. Were you investigating or on a tour?
I was just doing a night tour. I just did a night tour. So it was,
yeah.
I think you have to have some serious like clout to do your own, like to hang out unencumbered. I think it's like a state, or no, it's like a federal landmark.
You have to have a lot of money.
Yeah, because we were like, what even happened? Because we were on the night tour and it's huge, and we were like, people must stay behind all the time, and we were like, what happens, to people who stay behind? And they're like, well, I don't want to quote them or whatever, but it was like, they said it was like a federal or a felony or something like that. It was like that serious. It was like you're trespassing on a national park, so that's the deal.
Well, clearly they've got TV shows in there before.
Yeah. So you probably need a lot of money, and
Well, I have heard rumors about that price. So I do know people that have gotten in there for TV and have told me that it's around $16,000 a night to rent that place out.
Wow.
Yeah,
All
and
right.
I mean, I'm not saying no to that price, but I don't have that in my bank account waiting to go. But maybe someday I come into something, and it's the first thing I'd spend it on is Alcatraz.
Yeah, well, it's cool. It's expansive. That's kind of what struck me. Like just when you walk around in the Alcatraz prison, that takes up almost the whole tour time. And we opted to do the night tour because it's spookier and shit. And in retrospect, it was like, if you go in the daytime, you can stay in Alcatraz all until 6 at night. So you can actually. And you're on, and then you can kind of walk around on your own. I don't know if I'd be really interested to know if like you could go there just as a regular person and go on the tour and then start busting out shit and be like, I've got my equipment, I've got my thing. Or if they're like, hey man, knock it off, get out. Like you can't be doing ghost investigations. Like I'd really be interested in even what their response to that would be if you just tried to do a guerrilla ghost hunt, because you're theoretically allowed to just go walk around on Alcatraz.
That's true. And I mean, I've gone to a place for a night tour before, and we did pull out equipment every chance we got. And I had a radio playing on a little boombox that I was just wearing around my neck. It's like this big, and it's a tiny little Bluetooth speaker. And I had a Panda box linked to it. And every time we got a moment without a tour guide, we would just go stand there and listen to the radio and see what voices we could come through. This was on the Queen Mary, actually.
I feel like the drag queen, the San Francisco, the Alcatraz, this makes the most sense. Why someone should be, commissioning you to do this. This is like, how sells itself.
Yeah. Imagine and what's really interesting to me, and I keep telling everyone this, if they get me into Alcatraz, they still have the little tunnel that the person escaped through from the cell. I'm like, could you picture a drag queen going through that tunnel? Like, how freaking hysterical would that be, first off? And then second off, like, imagine the energy reading from that. Just having a drag queen in a prison that didn't even have women in it.
Yeah. No, it's like you said, you seem to be a catalyst for the energy, and it would be really interesting to see. Yeah, that would be really interesting to see what went down. Yeah, Alcatraz. Well, it's cool. Like I said, you really want to be able to kind of fuck around on your own. My buddy Kutch wandered away from you can wander, but it's like, but my buddy Kutch wandered into into the solitary confinement rooms, and he swears he heard something whisper in his ear, but
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty spooky. It's a spooky place.
There's so many cool locations. Yeah, so many cool ones. Winchester, Shanley, Not Stanley Hotel from The Shining, the Winchester Mystery House. Those are all bucket lists. Anchorage Hotel in Alaska. It's known for attacking women, so I want to know if it'll attack
Oh,
me.
wow.
Yeah, like there's just a lot of weird shit out there that I want to see it all.
Yes. Well, the Axe Murder House would be, that's another one. That's one I'd like to
Villisca?
check out. Yeah.
We were talking about that last week. Actually, when I was in Iowa last week at Edinburgh Manor, and we were talking about the Villisca Axe Murder House because it's not far from there, and they said it's a very weird house. The readings in there are really interesting, and there's a whole story about. Do you know the bacon story?
No. Oh, yeah. That some bacon was like randomly placed on the floor. Like it was there was out of place bacon. Essentially.
No, that's not the story. There was bacon on the floor, but supposedly the murderer with the bacon after killing people used it as like a tool to get off and then left the bacon on the floor. Well,
I never heard that story.
Yes, and so it's kind of weird because sometimes when I'm investigating, the word bacon comes up because I actually have a bacon tattoo on my foot. So I was like, oh my God, if I go there with this bacon tattoo, is this killer going to come through and talk about the bacon on my foot? Like, it's kind of a weird story.
That's an odd synchronicity. I'd never heard that, the X-rated bacon version. So
I heard it on a podcast.
Interesting. That's really weird.
Yeah, that was supposedly what the bacon was for. And I actually had to ask the people that had gone there about that. And I said, yeah. I'm like, that's so random, like bacon.
Well, it was like a long time ago, so who knows what kind of,
bacon?
They didn't have lube back then, I suppose. So he was kind of like, these people, these axe murderers. Who knows? Who knows what motivates the axe murderers?
I think that's a murder that's never been solved.
No, it's never been solved. Nobody. Yeah, it's just a really weird, just like a really explosively violent moment in time. That's the really, it's like akin to a school shooting, but it's like, or a family it is a family massacre. It's really weird.
It's like Amityville big too, but it never went as big as Amityville did. Amityville, there was 6 children killed. Villisca was, I think it was 4 to 6 somewhere in there. It was quite a few kids that were murdered and the family.
Well, it's like in the middle of the country, right?
True.
Yeah, so it's like flyover country. Doesn't get the attention of a Lizzie Borden house. You've been to the Lizzie Borden house, I take it.
Like 6 times.
Really?
Yeah, I've been there quite a few times. I used to stay there for just the Airbnb when I started ghost hunting because it has an allure to it, and it's right down the road. Obviously, it's like an hour away from me, and I've never really gotten a lot at the Lizzie Borden house. I've had some weird, one night I had sleep paralysis there, and it scared the shit out of me to the point that at 2 a.m, I almost got up and slept in the car. Because I suffer from sleep paralysis, so I take sleeping pills so it doesn't happen. Because it's terrifying to wake up and not be able to move, but be able to see everything around you. Because that's essentially what happens to me. And I was at Lizzie Borden when this happened, upstairs on the 3rd floor in the attic, in a room where there are children spirits. And yeah, that was not good. But all in all, the Lizzie Borden house to me feels like a very more of a paranormal gift shop.
Yeah. It's especially now with the new ownership and everything. So it's an interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of controversy surrounding all that, and there's a coffee shop. I haven't been
since. Yeah,
it's it's quite a local to do over the Lizzie Borden name and all that. And now, oddly enough, the people that own Lizzie Borden house now own the Villisca Axe House.
What? So, they do? Yeah. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's like I don't know if I like these as roadside attractions. I don't like one company buying them all up. That's like, okay, don't, because they probably don't. These places come along and they're like, we'll give you a shitload of money for your thing that's just kind of scraping by as a novelty haunted house. And they're like, fuck yeah, all right. And then next thing you know, Villisca Axe House is owned by this big company.
Yeah, and that changes the energy too. I feel like if you're going to buy a house just to turn it into a tourist attraction, that is the wrong pretense to do so. And that's why locations like Wilson Castle, Wilson Castle tells you on every tour that 10 years ago they were going to lose the castle. They had nothing left to fix the castle, and it was becoming like a burden to them. And then all of a sudden, one ghost hunting show kicked off Paranormal there, and now Wilson Castle has money to look into future planning.
Yeah,
And like, it's so crazy to me. Like these billionaires that come in and sweep up crap, and then they go in there and charge a fortune to get evidence in there, and it changes the ghosts too. The spirits like start to get pissed, and they leave, or they don't find it to be their home anymore, and they just go somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. It's very dispiriting. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The family owned locations are the some of the best energy out there. And Wilson Castle is just one that the owner is. I beg her every time I'm there to sell me the castle. I beg the ghost of her great grandfather to get me pregnant so I can inherit the castle. Like, I'm in love with this castle, but she wants to make sure it's kept in the family, and that to me is just so awesome that this historical place, even after we're gone, will still be owned by someone that is part of that legacy.
Well, it's a nice kind of hidden gem in a way, because I didn't even know about it until a few years ago. Like you're saying, it kind of it's kind of burst onto the scene a little bit in the last few years. And it's remarkable. Like I said, I was there 2 weeks ago. You were there last weekend. I was kind of it's like there's a ghost thing there every weekend.
I was there 2 days ago.
Yes.
Yeah, like just 2 nights ago. Yeah, it's remarkable. And it's remarkable to see places, even Hinsdale House, places like that, where you're seeing like the money go into the place and fix the place and keep it alive. Because a lot of these places would probably be condemned or torn down, or, they wouldn't exist anymore if it wasn't for the people that actually cared about preserving them.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure there's like tons of stuff like that. I do look around too. I don't know if you do this, but I look for places like that I'm always like, where is there? Because there's one in Western Mass that a woman bought, like a mansion that she's fixing up. I don't know. I blanked on the name of this when I talked to the Paranormal 5 folks too. But yeah, she's.
Is it recently?
Yeah, like in the last few years.
Was it? So there was a place out there called the Houghton Mansion. And a basketball player bought it, and they stopped doing paranormal after he bought it. So I would wonder if it's that switching hands again, because that place was dark. And that's Western Mass. That place was dark and messed up. But also, maybe it's SK Pierce. I don't know if a woman bought that, but that was purchased in the past however many years, and they put a lot of money into it, and it's beautiful now. It's in Gardner.
Yes, no, it wasn't the place in Gardner, but I know what you mean. What have you done an investigation at the place in Gardner?
That's where I got He's a Lady. That was the first time I went out in drag. Yeah. I just went investigating with friends, and I did it just to see how my body would react to it. Because being in drag is very uncomfortable. When you do a show, you're wearing pads, a corset, boobs. You're wearing all this weight on top of you, and then you're performing for 3 minutes. But after 2 numbers of 6 minutes total, you're done and you can leave. You get paid and you're done for the night. Right. When you go ghost hunting in drag, you're not there for 6 minutes in drag. You're there for a whole night in drag. So I did SK Pierce for the first one because it was a test, and I went with just a couple of friends, and I learned doing that test that night, first off, that the spirits are going to fucking react to everything I look like and do that night. They were all about me. And then I also learned that I had to have clothing made so that I didn't have to wear anything under my clothes, like pads or corsets. I had to wear stuff that gave me body without me actually wearing the body, because it's too hot. And when you're trying to sit down and it's not comfortable to even sit, you're not going to focus on the energy. So I had to have like the whole way I do drag reinvented just to ghost hunt.
That's fascinating. Interesting. Okay. So there was like all kinds of extra like layers and shit that you were like, okay, this doesn't for a 6 minute performance, this works, but for 6 hours of walking around. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's amazing that I found someone to do all that for me.
What do you mean do all that for you?
Take that idea that I needed made, and I have a seamstress that makes all my ghost hunting dresses.
Oh, wow.
And and most people don't even realize that I'm not wearing pads, corsets, boobs. You can't tell because the dresses are just proportioned correctly, that they fluff out in the right areas.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. So much like with drag, you have someone who makes your costumes, outfits for the ghost hunting. That's wow. That's
because it
tremendous.
Has to be comfortable, and it has to make me not, because I am a sweaty bitch. And as soon as I get into drag and I have everything on, I am sweating through everything, water dripping down my face. So I need to be comfortable, especially when you're sensitive. You can't focus on your energy reading if you're miserable where you're sitting. So like being in drag can be very miserable. It's a lot of work, it's a lot of weight, it's a lot of makeup. The makeup is what kills it for me usually during an investigation. By being in makeup for 7-8 hours, then you're done. You want it off, you want to feel comfortable, you don't want to feel itchy. So that's usually when I change, and that's usually why I change. But having to just change the whole way I did drag to Ghost Hunt. I stopped doing drag shows like 2 years ago just to focus on paranormal stuff.
Wow. I knew that you'd stepped down from doing drag shows. I remember you had announced that. I think I recall that that's what you had said at the time. But I didn't really register with me. Wow, interesting.
I just got too busy.
Yeah, well, you're mentioning all this. I almost feel bad, but I guess this is Monique Toosoon. But I'm like talking to you, and I'm like, you really didn't have to do all this. I feel like I really appreciate that you've come on in All America in full bloom here.
Oh,
Because like I'm just like a schlub. I'm just people you can't see it. I'm like in my pajamas here.
if you could see me from the waist down, I would be in pajamas right now.
There you
I'm
go,
not.
yeah.
I'm not uncomfortable. I got ready for another podcast, so if I do this, it's because I've got 2 or 3 other ones ready to go too. I knock them all out in one night, and then I don't have to do it for 3 days. So
There you go. And for the people listening on the podcast, jump on the YouTube so you can see Monique, because she really brought it here for the show. And I love drag queens, but I'll be honest, I always feel like you're all too fabulous for me. I'm like a little goblin, and it's like I'm always like, they're cool, they're witty, they're super talented. I'm like, I'm not cool enough to I have like imposter syndrome or something. So but it's been really cool chatting with you.
And that's exactly what being a drag queen is. It's imposter syndrome. When I put everything on, I'm a new person. I'm a different personality. I can say things that I couldn't say as a boy. I can get away with things I don't get away with as a boy. Being in drag is like having a stunt double that is stupid, bitchy, ridiculous, like a child at heart. It's also courage. Because you're someone else, you're presenting someone else, and it gives you a little bit more of that courage to get through things, like hosting shows and stuff. It makes it, if I was a boy, I'd probably be a mess. But the fact that I'm in drag, I have this confidence. It gives you a confidence.
Yeah, it's like a suit of armor or something.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah. Well, I have a tremendous appreciation for the whole art form. So it's like and when you said you wanted to come on as Monique doing the whole thing, I'm like, this is awesome. This is I was really blown away. So you're doing a book. Let's talk about that. So you said you can only talk a little bit about it, but it's coming out by the end of the year.
Yeah, so in actually 2 weeks, the pre-orders will begin. So the reason we're not like really getting too far into the details is because I want to make sure that when we announce it, people can go right to Amazon and pre-order it. And right now you can't find it on the internet. So I ended up hooking up or meeting this person in Massachusetts named Rob Gutrow. He's a pet medium, really awesome guy. We met at a Paracon, and he had just moved to New England and wanted to do an event with me at some point. And we ended up doing this event at Emory Estate, which is in Weymouth, Massachusetts, not far from where you are. I'm sure you've heard of it. And the event had 45 guests at it. It was a very busy night, but the Rob Gutrow and my friend Alora, we were on a team together, and we had 3 very intense ghost connections that night that went on from the first session all the way till the third. Like 2 hours of speaking to the same 2 spirits, almost unheard of. Intelligence, intellect, and it was just so intense, and it ended up turning into a 100-page book about everything that happened that night. Yeah, so we ended up writing this book about this investigation, and there's pictures of the event there. There's sketches that Rob had drawn, because he's a sketcher as well as a medium. So he had drawn some of the pictures of the spirits we were speaking with. And we had such an amazing connection to this little boy spirit and this old man. And there was no way this couldn't turn into a book. Rob works for NASA. He's a meteorologist as well. He is, just a very brilliant scientist kind of guy. So Rob's a note taker. So Rob this night had taken pages and pages and pages of notes, and he's like, I think if we collect this all together and we can make this into a book.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we did. I didn't walk into any investigation. I didn't walk into any of my paranormal career ever thinking I'd have a book. I never, ever, ever had this in my list of things to do. And just one night of insane and ghost hunting turned, you know, into a book. And now I am going to be an author. And the book is called Haunting of Emery Estate. The cover and the pre-orders will start in, I think 11/11 is when the book comes out on Amazon for pre-order, and it releases in January.
Oh, there you go. All right.
And in January, we're going to have a party at Emery Estates, a book signing party with cocktails and appetizers, and the mayor of Weymouth is supposed to come.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Mayor
we had
of
to get
Weymouth.
permission to write the book. So when the mayor found out about we were writing a book, he or she, I don't know if it's a he or she, they wanted to come to the event. And so they put it on the mayor's schedule, and supposedly they're going to come and get a signed book.
Wow. All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool. And this is going to be in Weymouth?
Yes, at Emery Estates on 1/11, 2025. So 10 days after the book releases on Amazon.
What day of the week is that?
I don't. It's a Friday, I think, or Saturday. It's definitely a Friday or Saturday. I don't know off the top of my head. But the cool thing about this book is we had so much fun writing the book and doing this event that this is likely to turn into more.
Yeah.
You know, there's likely to be more books like this coming, and I designed the book cover, so I got to be a big part of that. And the book cover doesn't look like any other paranormal book you'll see out there. It's really cool. And it's just really well written, and I hate reading. I'm awful. That's why I never saw myself as an author. I hate reading. And I've read 1,000 paranormal logs and books, and sometimes you pick them up and you just put them right down because they're so detailed and boring. This book is very well written, so that it's easy to read, and there's pictures to keep your eyes into the book too as well, so you can see what we're looking at and what we're going through. And it's just really incredible, and I can't wait for the world to see it.
Awesome. All right. So 11/11, the pre-orders are. But do you have a title or no? Did you already
It's
say
called
that?
Haunting.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
you did. It's Haunting.
It's called
Sorry.
Haunting of
Trying to
Emery.
keep track of all this information.
Haunting of Emery Estate. I have the book, but I can't share it with you, so you have
That's
to wait
fine.
a couple weeks.
The Haunting of Emery Estate, and it is. It's going to be out 11/11 for pre-order, and then it'll be out in January. And I bet you I'll meet you in January because Weymouth is pretty close. So I'll try and make it
Absolutely.
up to the party there. Now you got some engagements coming up. You're going to be back at the West Virginia State Penitentiary. Talk about this a little bit. That's going to be on November 10th, so it's a day before the pre-orders start.
So that event is actually in the process of being rescheduled for next year.
Oh no!
Yeah, unfortunately, some things came up with that date, and we are moving it to, I don't know when next year, but that is going to be with Patty Negri, and we are still doing this event. But Patty Negri, for the first time ever, is going into this prison. I'm going in there for the first time ever in drag, and she is going to do a 2-hour seance in the cell block to open the veil and invite the spirits and to communicate. And if you've never been to like a Patty Negri seance, like if you aren't psychic, you will be during the seance.
Okay, well, I don't know much about Patty Negri, so she is. What's her deal? I know
Patty
you've worked with
Negri
her
is
before,
the world's probably the world's most famous witch. She's been on Ghost Adventurers. She kind of looks like Stevie Nicks. She's a very famous witch. She's been on a lot of different things. But she's just an incredible human being too. And I've been lucky to work with her. And this is the first time we were going to be working together in an investigative manner too. And I was just so excited to have the seance at the prison, but we're rescheduling it. But it will happen next year.
All right. Okay. So what about the Firefly Tarot Paranormal Mini Investigation and class on November 15th?
So this is really cool too, because this is the first time I'm hosting an equipment class. I'm going to teach about an hour of equipment, teach people how to use it, and then we're going to shut the lights off. And this store is on a building strip in Concord on Main Street. And 2 doors down used to be a hair salon, and I own a hair salon, so I know a lot about this because of that. But this hair salon was haunted, and they would always report like stuff flying off the shelves and stuff. So we're going to be in the tarot store that's connected to the hair salon. So we're going to ghost hunt the tarot store after the class. And this is like $50, super cheap, nice, fun, easy, quick night. It'll be a blast just to learn and do that. And this is an event that may get taken to the next level in the future. We're talking to the town of Concord about getting, or the city of Concord, I should say, about getting into some buildings that have been shut down for a very long time. I can't say any names yet, but there's a good chance Concord will have its very first ghost hunt ever.
Wow. Okay. Concord's never had a ghost hunt.
Not at these buildings. Nobody else
I see. Okay.
ever been in there, and yeah, we might get some access to that. We've got phone calls in, and we've already got confirmations that they're going to let us, but we haven't gotten dates to get in yet.
Interesting. Okay.
But it's something that people talk about. When you talk about haunted New Hampshire, it's like one of the first few things that people will bring up.
Oh, all right.
But no one's ever been in there.
Wow, that's cool. That you can get you may be able to get access to that.
And we might be the first people ever to investigate it.
So when you do an investigation, I'm sort of bringing my mind back to Wilson Castle. So you're in the room. Do you try to communicate with the ghost? I notice a lot of that. A lot of like just talking out to the ghosts. And part of me, it took me a while to kind of like, I don't know, just sort of like put my mind at ease with that, because I'm sort of like skeptical in a way, and so part of me was just like, okay, this feels kind of silly that we're just talking out loud, but but I take it that's kind of the standard operating procedure.
Yeah, you almost have to develop like a list of like how you're going to do this, but you never really stay on that list. Almost like a list of chapters in a book. Like you're going to set up, you're going to like, I always go in, I set up, I think about what equipment I want to use. Usually I do a walk around the place without any information known to me at this time. And then I usually follow that up with the tour from the people, because I want to walk around and get my own thoughts before they feed my thoughts. Mm-hmm. And then I let them feed my thoughts. And then all of that comes with me. And then usually there are times like when we're walking around during these tours that me and like my friends, I always bring mediums everywhere I go. And when we sync up, we always are like, okay, we're coming back here tonight because I can feel there's something here that wants to communicate. Like, and we'll just go to these places that we initially were like, we want to go here. Or we just go to places that were like, that place looked really fucking cool. Let's go investigate in that prison cell just because someone drew graffiti on it, or, and then we set up everything. Usually we start out with like a radio. We always start out with breathing exercises, of course, to relax our bodies and our minds. Sometimes we meditate a little bit. Sometimes people say whatever they chant, sometimes prayers, sometimes we do offerings. And that's a weird word for like, just like giving nature back nature before you go in as a thank you. Yeah. Like a vial full of spices and herbs or stuff from the land, rocks. Just like something to say thank you for what you're about to give us tonight. But yeah, and then we start our investigation, and you just ask questions to see what's there. You always ask the dumb questions like, how many ghosts are here right now?
Yeah. Will you tell us your name?
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Are you a male or a female? And you kind of, then you start building off of the basic questions you get. And sometimes you go into a place after a tour and that there's a lady named Connie there. And so you're like, Connie, are you here? And so you ask those spirits to come out. Typically, we know within a couple minutes, like if we're going to have any success in an area. You can usually tell if the energy is going to start ramping up or if it's kind of just still in spots.
Really?
I can, yeah. Like sometimes like you get to a place and you're sitting there completely silent and you don't feel or hear anything. It's just like you could go to sleep. And those areas, you just know immediately, get out of there because there's nothing there that wants to play. When you get into an area where there's going to be communication, it's not quiet when you stop talking. You feel it in the air. You can hear the noise. You know something's there.
Interesting. Okay.
You just have to focus in on it. You got to breathe. And then, you just investigate for hours upon hours. Some nights nothing happens, but you're doing it with friends in an old crap building, that's falling apart, peeling paint, and it's beautiful to look at, but you're there for the history, you're there for the fun with the friends, and the ghosts are just the extra cherry on top that you get from the night. You can't force the ghosts to play, but they almost always do.
Yeah, well, that was the impression I got. I suppose my whole experience was I was trying to take in everything, like how the people were doing their thing and all that. And also the other people who were there, because like I've been in this business of the paranormal for like 20 years now. So it's like I've seen it all, and I know all these people and everything. And I'm an old head. So I'm just kind of like, all right, how is this? What's the show here? What's going on? what's the rub here? How's this all working? So I'm just sort of taking an interest. Where did you come up? How did you find your way to this, to different people who were there? I guess my question is sort of, what is your experience with the patrons, for lack of a better term, the participants, the people who buy a ticket? I was very interested because some people had came, we saw the thing on Facebook and we decided just to come out. We've never done this before and everything. It's like, wow, this is really interesting, different. Other people were like, we're the Tallahassee ghost folks, and we saw it on Facebook, and we decided to make the drive up and check it out. And they had their shirts and shit, and I'm like, they had their own shit, and I'm like, okay, so this is like all different types of people are participating in this interesting evening here at the Wilson Castle. So half the time I was like studying the people. I was like, fuck you, ghosts. I want to know more about Bridget, who found the thing on Facebook. So that all my rambling there. The question is, what's your experience with the people who, buy a ticket and come to do these things? Have you had any interesting or unique experiences or memorable moments with these people proverbially off the street?
Yeah, I've had a lot of cool experiences. One thing about being sensitive is you can always tell when other people are sensitive too. So when people show up, you can see them glowing in a sense. And then you're like, oh, that person's got something. I wonder if they know it, because half the time they don't. So throughout the night, we'll kind of like focus on those people and see what they're doing, because typically they are. But one thing about guests that I love is you get guests from all over the place, all over the map, beginners, seasoned investigators. And I love them all because they all feed the investigation in some way, shape, or form. I have a lot of repeat guests that come too as well, because I do a lot of different locations in New England. So I get a lot of repeats. I have guests that come to Wilson Castle every time I'm there.
Oh, wow.
Because Wilson Castle on its own has one of the most amazing draws. And it's because the energy there does not want you to leave in the morning. So it's almost like asks you to stay. Like you find yourself wandering the castle in the morning when you wake up. Like you never just go to your car and leave. You wander. And sometimes you can just wander endlessly. And like people think about that after when they leave the castle. It's like, I want to go back. You want to go back. I always want to go back to the castle. So like I get a lot of repeat customers there. I had the coolest customers on New Year's Eve at the Conjuring House 2 years ago. This was one of the funniest. This is the only time this has ever happened, but it was in my mind funny. And when you go back to the moment and you look at the pretense of it, you're like, oh, those poor people. But so we were at the Conjuring House on New Year's Eve, and as a Christmas present, this dad had bought his wife and daughter a ticket to the Conjuring House. And this is a pretty thick event if it's your first paranormal investigation. This isn't Wilson Castle. This is heavy, deep energy. And they probably didn't know that their daughter was mildly sensitive in some way, shape, or form. And during the first 20 minutes of having a radio playing at this investigation, this group, that all three of them got up and ran out the front doors, freaked the hell out by all the voices coming through the radio. And sometimes some of that stuff's not even legitimate to what's happening right then. It's just it's voices. And they ended up leaving the event, and the daughter was just really sensitive and having a hard time processing it. But everyone else in the event was like, oh my god, people are so afraid they're leaving within 30 minutes of the event starting. And that is so cool to actually have that happen. But we went outside. We talked to her, we talked to the family, and we're like, not everything, some things sound scarier than they are. There's nothing here that's going to hurt you. We're protecting you in our bubbles. But the guests sometimes make the event too. Some of them are crazy. Some of them are hysterical. I've had guests fall asleep and start snoring in the middle of a ghost hunt.
Oh, God.
They get so comfortable, they just take a nap, and then everyone else is laughing because someone's snoring in the corner.
Well, that kind of happened, not the sleeping part, but I felt very bad when I did the ghost hunt a couple of weeks ago, because I had just come from, as folks know, the Bigfoot Festival in Whitehall. It's like a half hour away from Wilson Castle. Paranormal 5 were doing their thing that night. So I did a whole day, like a whole fucking long day of paranormalia, and only had a really bad steak and cheese sub from a food truck. I wish I won't say who they were. I don't remember them anyway, but it was bad. So anyway, I was hungry as shit and tired. And at one point, I'm going to confess, if anyone's listening who was on the ghost hunt that night, at one point, we were like in the room. It's all super quiet. My stomach growled very loudly. And they were like, did you hear that? Whoa, what was that? What was that? And I just was like, I'm keeping my fucking mouth shut. I'm not going to tell them that was my stomach growling. But it was very, it was very embarrassing for me, but also kind of funny because I'm like, oh shit, they thought that was
a demon.
I
And we
just
always tell
noticed the
people
ghost.
before, when the event starts, we do like a whole little speech before we even go on the investigation. And we're always like, if you fart, if your belly makes a noise, if you burp, claim it or blame it on the person next to you. Because we need to know that when we go back through our footage that there's
No
not
one
a
told
demon
me that.
growling. Oh, so
No
that's
one.
what we do. We always tell them, claim it or blame it. Because we're
Yeah,
all
blame it.
adults, we all fart, and it's gonna happen. But and we eat Pizza Hut at the
Yeah.
castle. It's one of the only places that's close by that we can get food. So we eat Pizza Hut. Obviously, we're going to have diarrhea in the morning.
It's a wonderful place, that Wilson Castle. I really
it
do.
really is.
It really is. And I know exactly what you mean about the wandering. It almost like you talk about energy. Yeah, I'm not particularly sensitive, but I do. Yeah, I get the feeling that like it wants to be lived in. Almost like I was saying about how like the bed was like, oh, finally I'm alive again. The bed is like
Yeah.
I'm being put to use. I'm not like a relic. It's like I think maybe that whole spirit kind of embodies the house, where it's like it wants people roaming the halls.
Yeah, and it has an allure. Like you never want to leave. I want to live there. I want to buy it. I want to roam the halls endlessly. And the people that own it, the woman that owns it, Denise, is beautiful, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful person.
Yeah.
She's ghost hunted with us in there, and she really is so joyful. And Andy, the caretaker, like such incredible people there. They're the kindest souls that you'll ever meet. You'll never meet anyone like them.
Yeah, they're cool. I've met Andy a couple times. She's really cool. I didn't get to meet the lady there. Unfortunately, well, I did. Well, she was around, but I didn't really cross paths with her on the night I was there. But I've heard good things about her, and that she's sensitive herself, right?
She is.
Denise, that's her name.
Yeah, Denise, and she's just very there's not an evil bone or thing about her. She's just pure love. Just wonderful, wonderful person. And the spirits in that castle that are related to her, they love what she's doing with it.
Oh, I bet, because she's fixing up the house and everything.
She's keeping their legacy. Yep.
Yeah, like they said when we were there that the money for the thing was going to help fix the roof, and it's like shit. You need a roof, man. That's like the main part of the house. You really need to make sure it works.
So, 3 years ago, I started doing events there. 3 years, and I started in June. So this June was my third year there, and when I started 3 years ago in June, the castle looked a lot more distressed than it does today. And when we would go hunt in the attic, like 3 years ago, there were like 40 or 50 big blue bins collecting water from all the leaks.
Yeah.
Now there's 2. So that goes to show over 3 years how much the paranormal helped that castle. It fixed a whole roof. It's fixing things inside. They have 2 working bathrooms now. Wonderful.
You can't go wrong with 2 working bathrooms.
Especially when you have 40 guests.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was blown away by that too, because I was like, that was one of the big. I'm such a paranormal fucking nerd, but it was like that was one of the big things that I was thinking about going in. Not like, oh, am I going to see a ghost? Or maybe I was like, I wonder how many people will be there. I wonder how many. So I was really impressed that, for the one we were there at, there was like 35 or so people, plus all of the various experts and investigators and stuff. I was like, wow, I was like, oh, it's probably maybe a dozen people there. I was like, wow, this is really much more popular than I thought it was. I thought I was like kind of had been tipped off to some kind of fringier thing, but it was like, no, this is way bigger than I thought it was. And I take it the same with yours, because you said there was like 30 plus people there.
Yeah, it depends on the event. Sometimes they don't let you have more than 20. Sometimes you don't sell out. Like not all my events are complete knockouts. I've had like 2 or 3 that were either low sellers, and we had groups of like 5 or 7. And those nights are really fun too, because you don't have to switch groups, because you're just one tiny group the whole night. But we've also had events like the Emory Estate one. Like, actually, Emory Estate was 45 people, but I just did Edinburgh in Iowa. They had 85 people.
Oh my God.
The event. 85. And so they divided everybody into 4 groups and had 4 locations throughout the place that they would send people through. But
wow,
that was a lot of people for an event. It was the biggest one I've ever done.
Yeah, that's sizable. Jeez, Ghost must be like, what the fuck, dude? What?
Yeah.
This is too many people. Interesting. Now you got another event coming up I didn't mention yet. This is the Triple Threat Paranormal Investigation in Winchendon, Mass. Which is I'm familiar with Winchendon, Mass. I have a dark history with Winchendon, so when I saw this,
everyone
I was
does.
like, yeah, it's an odd little burg.
Yeah.
So tell me about the Triple Threat Paranormal Investigation on December 14th.
This is our second year doing this one. This one's really freaking cool because guests get 3 different locations and 3 different investigations because you're getting 3 different teams working. So you're not just going with the same people all night. You're switching up every location and team. And last year we did this event. I was stationed in the mansion and I had the Paraclauses with me, and the mansion was decorated for Christmas. And the Paraclauses sat at the Christmas tree as Santa and Mrs. Claus. And we put tripwire around the Christmas tree. And then we put a radio next to them. And we had children come up to Santa and Mrs. Claus in front of that Christmas tree during our investigation. And it was so fucking cool. And this year, we're going to end the night with Santa and Mrs. Claus by the Christmas tree. So we're going to do it again and hope we can get those children's spirits to come through again. And this year I'm also stationed at the church.
Okay.
Which had some really negative energy in it. Last year, Sam Baltrusis refuses to go back in there because of it. And I've decided that if I'm going to be in a church, I'm going to be a nun. So I'm having a nun dress made.
Oh, awesome. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm either going to piss off the spirits or they're going to have a good laugh at me.
Okay, so how does this work? So there's 3 locations, and it goes like you go, and everybody goes like to A, B, and C, essentially.
Yeah. So what we'll do is when the guests arrive, we'll split them in thirds thirds, and then each group will start. Yeah, they'll get the tour first. They'll talk about the locations because there's the toy museum, the mansion, and then the church. And the toy museum and the mansion are literally on the same side of the road and across the street. So it's like 2 cars away.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah.
So they just walk to each other. Okay. But then everyone gets in their car and they just drive 2 minutes down the road to the church when they're at the church. But what we'll do is we'll start out as a group. We do the tour. We explain what we're going to do. We usually do a quick little seance or something to like get people to calm their energy, collect them. And then we split the groups in 3 and we take our groups to these locations. Then that group will spend probably like an hour and a half with each team in those locations. And then they'll be sent to the next one. And they'll just rotate until we've had all 3 groups. Yeah. And then we all get back together at the mansion and go to the Christmas tree with the Santa Clauses.
Wow. See,
and they get to take pictures with the Santa Clauses as well.
Oh my God. See, you really know how to put on a show, Monique. Jesus.
That's why my events are amazing. People need to get on board with it because it's really freaking cool. And I mean, that event last year was sold out and one of my favorite events of the year just because when I started investigating years and years and years ago, I was paying like $150, $250 to go to an investigation from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. Yeah. And that event is $125 and you get 6 p.m. to midnight and you get 3 locations, 3 completely different investigations, different tools every time, different personalities, mediums. Like, what a freaking bargain. I wish I had that when I was starting to ghost hunt.
Yeah, I'm kind of blown away. Like I said, you know how to put on a show. That sounds like that's you're almost talking me into making the harrowing journey to Winchendon just to participate in this. Yeah, it sounds really awesome. Now
you get the best hostess.
Yeah, I get a chance to meet you. So why didn't it ever dawn on you you said COVID sort of inspired you to start doing the ghost hunts in drag. Had you ever considered it before? Why didn't you ever, why after all that time, why did these not cross over beforehand?
Because of the uncomfortableness of drag. Honestly, because when you do a drag show, it really is uncomfortable. It's probably the most I would rather get surgery than do drag some days, corsets suck, hip pads suck, everything about the body hurts because it's making you into a shape that you are not.
Yeah.
The makeup, when you're not used to wearing makeup 7 days a week and you go to put on makeup that's thick enough to cover a beard or to be seen on a stage under bright lights, you're putting on a lot. So it feels almost like you're wearing frosting on your face for hours.
Right.
The hair gets itchy, it gets hot. It's miserable to be in drag. It's not fun at all.
Yeah.
So like that is probably what deterred me from doing it for so long, because I don't want to be in a location usually which have no air conditioning. So if it's in the summer, I'm going to be a sweaty Betty. If
Right,
it's
right.
in the winter, I'm going to be freezing. Like it seemed miserable to me until I started doing it and
Yeah.
realized that in the winter I love it because I'm hot even when I'm in drag, and then in the summer I just had to figure out how to not wear any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. So it was almost like the paranormal investigations were an escape or something, or two just completely different parts of your life. It's interesting.
Yeah. And I never thought paranormal and drag would be a thing. And there's really no one out there doing it. There was a show called Living for the Dead on Hulu that had a trans woman that was ghost hunting, Roz Hernandez, who's incredible, but I have never seen a drag queen ever other than her and myself doing this.
Yeah, no, I can't recall. And I've been watching the whole scene for like 20 years, as I'm sure you have. So it's like, yeah, I don't ever recall, which is funny because uh, they've like wrung the sponge out on different paranormal demographics and occupations and different like combinations. It's like ghost hunting mailman, and then it's just every different kind of ghost hunting. I'm really kind of surprised that they haven't done a drag ghost hunting show yet. So
It's been put out there. It's definitely been put out there a couple of times, and honestly, it's gotten bites, it's gotten this, it's gotten that, but it just also hasn't gotten anywhere at the same time, So who knows? It's destined to be at some time, and I'm glad to be one of the pioneers of the drag ghost hunting world, and being the experiment to see what happens. And I mean, I don't even think I've had another ghost hunting drag queen come with me, like one of my friends yet, actually do it in drag to see if they would do what I do to a place, like their energy would do it. So, there's so much to see what the future holds with this.
You took the question right out of my head. I was just going to ask you. Yeah, it was. Yeah. So none of your drag friends have come along yet on an investigation in drag, presumably.
No, a couple of people have asked to, but it just doesn't ever work out like timing wise. And I don't want to have a drag queen at an event either. So it had to be something private, because it would just, if I had to like have a drag queen at my event, it could get really distracting from what I'm trying to do with the guests. And I don't want to distract the guests until that drag queen's already done it. Because it can be a little distracting on your first try. But I have a drag queen that has reached out and is like, this is literally what I wanted to do my whole life. Can you bring me on an investigation? So she's probably going to come to the triple threat.
All right.
So it'll be her first time coming out and trying it. And I'm going to give her a chance to come out and just see what it's about and see if it bores her to death or see if she's into it like she really thinks she is.
You could form a team. That would be cool.
Yeah, it would be really cool. It would be great to have a second drag queen and I split the group in half, two drag queens hosting it. So they're only getting half the night with me, That would be
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what I also like, what you're kind of adding, you're injecting a different perspective into the ghost hunting scene. But one of the big sort of complaints and sort of what's put me off in a way also from the ghost scene for a long time was sort of this very bro-y culture of like militant sort of like they all have their combat boots and they're all black uniforms and shit. It's like I'm just an old fart, man. I'm just a burnout hippie, man. I'm just trying to have some fun, and it's like I don't want to end up somehow winding up in the Proud Boys out of this. So it's like Jesus Christ. So I love what you're bringing to the table here, because it really sort of pierces that bro bubble that ghost hunting has had for a long time.
Puts a little bit of color in a very dark bubble, and they're threatened by me for sure, which I love. I love it and I hate it in the same time, because I'm probably getting pushed back because of some of the hatred. But like, you're gonna do what you want to do. You don't want to respect what I got to do because of the way I do it, then you don't need to be part of my world. other people's business is not my business, or other people's opinions is not my business.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I mentioned earlier you have a very poignant video on your YouTube channel, and I agree with you 110%. The persecution of drag queens over the last few years has been outrageous. It really upsets me. It is just disgusting and misinformed, and it upsets me. It really does, because it's like it's not only just the hatred and the ignorance, but it's also you can see people being fucking manipulated into hating and being ignorant, and it's horrifying. And so my heart goes out to you and all the drag performers who have to put up with this fucking bullshit. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, and just one thing with that too, I am a drag queen that has an 8-year-old child. I have a son, okay? So all these people that are trying to say that drag queens and children don't blend together, there is content for adults, there is content for children. I have a child. He's not being groomed. My son has zero interest in drag and putting hair on or changing gender. Like, that is all so misconstrued by probably one circumstance that happened in the world. The only thing that my son knows about drag, aside from seeing me do it, he's never been to a show, obviously, because they're 21 plus, but he's seen me leave the house. He tells me I look handsome. And the only thing he knows is that I'm doing something that makes me happy and makes other people smile. And he's going to grow up and he's never going to hate a single fucking soul, because he's being raised to know that everyone is equal, no matter what they are or who they are.
Exactly. Absolutely. So I just kind of wanted to go on my soapbox there about that, because it's pretty. I'm 110% on your side with this one.
Just get over it. It's entertainment. That's all it is at the end of the day.
Exactly.
It's not doing anything bad. If you think there is something bad going on, then you need to do a little bit more research, because it's probably not actually happening. It's probably something that was created and put on social media just to scare people.
Exactly. Absolutely. Yeah. It's almost, it's really troubling and bizarre. Like I said, just kind of how you can just see it's like stirred up. It's like stirred up. It's like, fuck, the people who stir it up, it's like, just
did you see my
lawsuit, over it, man? I did. I wasn't sure if I should bring it up on the show or not, but if you want to mention it, I'm very interested in it, to be honest with you.
A local state representative here from New Hampshire decided a couple of years ago to go on I don't know what this is called. When you go to the place, you go to the state, you meet with all the other politicians from the state, and he was getting up to try and pass a bill about doing background checks on library volunteers because of drag queens. That was the ultimate goal. And when he went to go pass this bill, he decided to go on the mic and say that this drag queen that hosted this event at a library, he found out after she did this, she was a convicted sex offender. And then this other drag queen that did this other event in New Hampshire was rubbing butts with children at an event. Well, neither one of those things are true. And he went on to say this a couple more times after that date to the press and other places with zero research or facts. And we ended up in litigation for 2 years, and recently we settled the lawsuit, and he has to pay us each a sum of money, and he had to put apology out there, and it has to stay there.
Yeah, no, like I said, good for you in pursuing this. I was very intrigued by, part of me was like, my only question really was like, is this asshole really going to give you that fucking money, or is he going to cry poor and fucking tie it all up and shit? Or are you actually going to see that money? Because it's like, this guy's already an asshole. So I don't know.
I'm not answering that question.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
There's one question I will not answer.
But I'm skeptical of a lot of things, like ghosts, UFOs, Bigfoot. I love them all. I want them all to be real. I also keep a skeptical mind, but I'm really fucking skeptical of that things are gonna work out the way they should in this instance. So, but good on you for fucking going after that guy.
It's all about
yeah.
rights. It's all about, agendas and rights, and people who lie are going to be held accountable. And please don't lie about people when it's not true. You can cause more damage than anything doing that. And imagine the situation I could have been put in because of that. That's a pretty harsh statement. That's alerting people to someone being a sex offender. That's not.
Right. Exactly.
Violence.
No, that's really, yeah. That's when you go to fucking court for sure. That's when you're like, yeah, dude, you've crossed the fucking line of decency, man. What the fuck's wrong with you? Yeah. I get fired up about this stuff because it really, it upsets me, I don't think it was like New Hampshire or something where they were like trying to ban trans high school athletes. And like, there's like fucking 2 of them. Like, what are you guys doing up there? It's like, come on, Jesus Christ!
I am just one of those people that thinks that they should just go by weight, get rid of gender. Who the fuck cares?
That's a good idea.
I've seen some lesbians that are bigger than the football players and stronger than the football players that are men. Like people are too concerned about what people have in their pants and in their houses.
Exactly.
And they should just be concerned about their own ignorance and what's going on in their own house.
Absolutely, as Tim Walsh says, mind your own damn business.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, Monique Toosoon .com is the website.
Yes.
Linktree / Monique Toosoon is sort of where you can find all your stuff. Yep. I always get tripped up because it's like linktr.ee. I'm old. It's like www.
They'll search for it and they'll find it without even getting the right link anyway. It pops up.
Exactly. Or just go to the Google machine and type in Monique Toosoon, Toosoon. Oh, I did want to ask you before I let you go. What is, because I find these fascinating, what is sort of the background of Monique Toosoon, the name?
So the Monique part, I was on my way to a competition in Boston and I didn't have a drag name. And one of my friends was like, "You're French and you look very French. You should be Monique." And I was like, "Okay, I'll be Monique." And then Toosoon came because I always have the most Toosoon humor you could imagine.
Ah, okay. All right.
I'm one of those drag queen hostesses that wants to cross every border and line and just see every reaction. So people are like, "Oh my God, Toosoon." So it just became a thing and it stuck.
Awesome. All right. There you go. Okay, good. Because I have like OCD. And if I finish the interview, I'd be like, "You didn't fucking ask her where the name came from." Now I'm going to have to send her a message on Facebook. "Hey, by the way, I meant to ask you." Anyway, MoniqueToosoon.com is the website. Punch in Monique Toosoon on the Google machine. Monique, I cannot thank you enough. This has been an absolute blast. I've had so much fun chatting with you tonight. We are going to cross paths sooner rather than later. As I said, you're like a New England legend in the drag world, quickly on the way to becoming a New England legend in the paranormal field here, and beyond New England, I think, as well. As I said, folks, remember the name Monique Toosoon, because we're going to be hearing it a lot as the months and years go by here in the paranormal world. So I'm happy to have gotten you on the show just as sort of the rocket's starting to take off, and congrats on the book and all that good stuff. And I guess since the show's coming out the day before Halloween, happy Halloween.
Thank you. And happy Halloween to you. And thank you for having me. I had a blast too.